Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Talking Cardboard, a channel where we do reviews and playthroughs of any game made out of cardboard. On today's episode, I'm going through my top 5 favorite board games that were released in the year 2022 with a handful of honorable mentions. Let's get started. Like I said, in today's video, I'm going through my top 5 favorite board games that were released in the year 2022, but I wanted to start with a long list of honorable mentions because the year 2022 was just that fantastic of a year for board gaming, in my opinion. Honorable mentions here: Soulforge Fusion, Dead Reckoning, Northgard Uncharted Lands, Longshot the Dice Game, Planet Unknown, and Endless Winter. I still own all these games in my collection. I take that back, own all the games except for one because Nick from Talking Cardboard owns Dead Reckoning, but I own all the rest and they still remain in my collection. This year was just a fantastic year for games. Soulforge Fusion, a fantastic collectible card game style of a game that has an online digital format now that is a ton of fun as well. I highly recommend it. Dead Reckoning is a card crafting system game that is pirate themed, and it really feels like you're going around to these different islands and setting sail as a pirate, crafting these cards to upgrade your cards as you go. A little bit of combat with cannons and things going on. It definitely feels like one of the most pirate themed games I've ever played if you're looking for pirate themed games with that card crafting system. Northgard Uncharted Lands, a very simple, kind of more basic, streamlined version of an area control, kind of dudes on a map style game, but I really appreciate kind of how simplistic this game is compared to a lot of other more complex area control games out there, so I highly recommend Northgard. Longshot the Dice Game, a fun horse racing game revolved around rolling some dice and cheering for your horse to win the race with some special abilities mixed in to keep it interesting. Planet Unknown, one of the very best tile placement games out there that I have ever played. On your turn, you are rotating a Lazy Susan mechanism in the middle of the table, and depending on which tile you choose to be in front of you, that is the stack of tiles you can choose from, and that also dictates which tiles your opponents can choose from on that turn as well, and then the next player gets to do the same thing. So it's really fun to math out which tile you want in front of you to then place onto your board to trigger a bunch of tracks to get various victory points in different ways, but also deciding which tiles will land in front of which of your opponents for their option to choose from. So Planet Unknown is a fantastic tile placement game if you enjoy that style of game. And then Endless Winter. Endless Winter is right up there for me with Lost Ruins of Arnak and Dune Imperium. It mixes deck building with worker placement, and depending on which cards you play on your turn with your unique deck of cards, will tell you which spaces you can place your worker on the board to do different actions on the main board. I just love any game recently that has been mixing deck building mechanisms with worker placement and sending out your workers onto the board. I love the mix between those mechanisms, and the theme behind this game is really cool with more of like the cavemen era, sending out, trying to hunt down animals, and it's just got a lot going on with this game, but if you can give it a couple plays to learn all the rules with it, learning all the intricacies to the mechanisms and the rules and the gameplay is definitely worth it for the reward at the end. It's a very rewarding gameplay once you get the hang of it. So now getting into my actual number 5 game that was released in 2022, and this game is Heat Pedal to the Metal. Heat Pedal to the Metal is one of my all-time favorite racing games to ever be released. This game is just great. It really has that feel that you are in full control of your vehicle, trying to speed up and slow down when necessary to take the corners at the right speed so you're not spinning out and having to go back on the track and have other people pass you. You're really trying to dial in that speed, and it's also got a little bit of deck building with it in this game as well, where you are building the makeup of the engine of your car on what cards you can play to race your vehicle around the track. The reason why the game's called Heat, the main mechanism with it is you have heat cards in your engine, and you can spend heat to like turbo boost and do different things. But if you spend too much heat and you wear your engine down too much to where it essentially overheats, then that can really slow you down and set you back some turns. So you have to manage the amount of heat and turbo boost you're doing, and really manage your the maintenance of your engine as you are racing around the track all at the same time. So I really love how intricate the card play is with the deck building and really making your engine and your vehicle feel super unique compared to the other players around the table. Each of their cards will be different as well, so each vehicle feels completely different as you are trying to win the race. So Heat is a fantastic racing game. So now on to my number 4 game. The number 4 game is, in my opinion, one of the best, if not the best, implementation of the Clank series of games, and this is Clank Catacombs. If you've played Clank before, you're familiar with the system. It is deck building. You're using the cards to delve through a dungeon to try to collect relics and these different artifacts to gain you victory points, and you're trying to collect those relics and get the heck out of there before either the dragon takes you down or the whole thing, the whole cave or the whole dungeon collapses on you and you die. If you are stuck down in the depths of the dungeon by the end of the game, then you are left with 0 points at the end of the game. But if you can make it back up to the surface, you get to keep those points that you had collected when you were going down through the dungeon. And also, if you can race all the way to the top and be one of the first couple players to get back up there with your relics, you get bonus points for that as well. But I just love the sense of exploration in this game, and Clank Catacombs, that this version of Clank really heightens that sense of exploration. In the first couple iterations of Clank, it's a static game board where you can see your path, you know where you're traveling to through the dungeon. There aren't really any surprises, but in Clank Catacombs, as you are searching through the dungeon, every time you get to a new section that you haven't explored yet, you are taking a random tile off of a stack of tiles, flipping it over and attaching it to the dungeon to reveal what is in that room. It's a real sense of mystery and not knowing what you're going to find, and a sense of true exploration as you are diving through this dungeon, and all the players are doing the same thing and creating their own paths through the dungeon, and then trying to navigate your way back to the top after you've collected the points that you're looking for. So I think Clank Catacombs is probably my new favorite way to play Clank. All the versions of it are fantastic. But if you don't have Clank yet, or don't have Clank in space, I think Clank Catacombs is definitely the starting point where I would first introduce myself into the Clank series of games. So that is Clank Catacombs. All right, and my number 3 game on the list was another huge release for 2022. It made a big splash in the industry, a big splash on the internet for a lot of review channels, and for good reason. This game is just fantastic. I love everything about it. And this game is Revive. Check out one of our other videos here on the Talking Cardboard channel. We did do a full teach of the game and playthrough of a few rounds of play, so you get a feel of how the game plays and what it is all about. So that video is called our Teach and Play of the Revive game. Revive is another game with a lot of card play where you are gaining these cards that are specific to you that you can then use those cards to play actions with, and you are essentially coming out of hiding after hundreds of years of being underground during an ice age, and now the above surface has been thawing out, and you want to come back out of your hole, out of hiding, and explore the surface to see what you find. As you are exploring, you are trying to build these settlements and trying to take claim to these different regions to give you resources and points, and trying to claim the land. It's got a little bit of, not necessarily area control, but kind of racing to claim different parts of the land for the bonuses before your opponents can do that. So it's got, again, that sense of exploration as you are searching amongst the surface land. And the card play is really smooth. Like I said, you can play cards to gain resources. You can build settlements to gain other resources. You're using those to gain technology that is unique to you. Every player starts with a unique asymmetric faction with a special ability, and whatever your faction is good at doing, you're trying to exploit that special ability or those powers. And also you have a few tech trees on your main player board that you can upgrade to gain even more unique special abilities that are specific to you. Also, each player has another main player board that you are gaining these discs to place on that main player board, and those discs will unlock additional asymmetric powers that you are gaining that are unique to you. So you really feel like you are a completely different race or a completely different faction than your opponents, and playing the game in a unique way to try to get the most amount of points you can. So I really like the customization in this game on how everything you do will make yourself feel unique to everyone else, but all in the while it's still got that sense of exploration on the main game board, where you're discovering new things and just trying to manage your resources to do with them what you can to have the most points by the end. So that is Revive. All right, and my number 2 game on the list here is the smallest box game on this entire list, and doesn't look like much of a game at all. It's just a deck of cards, nothing special about it. I mean, the artwork is kind of cutesy, and a game that I discovered a few weeks ago, so I'm definitely very late to the party with this game. But played it a lot on Board Game Arena, online, and I also picked up the physical copy, and I've been playing a lot of games of it with my wife. I think I've probably at least got 40 or 50 games of this played under my belt now, because the game plays so quickly. But this is Sea Salt and Paper. Like I said, it's just a deck of cards, but it's just a ton of fun to play. On your turn, you are either taking 1 card out of one of the discard piles, or you're taking 2 cards off of the top of the deck, picking one to keep and discarding the other. So essentially you're only gaining 1 new card every turn, but with those cards that you're gaining to your hand, kind of like in Go Fish, you can create pairs of cards of the same card and play them down as a special power. There's some set collection in the game too, where you're trying to collect these different sets of cards like seashells or other cards that'll gain you victory points. And the way that each round ends is really creative in this as well, because you are just playing the round out, gaining cards, playing cards, doing whatever you will. And at that very moment that you reach 7 points, whether it be from the points in your hand or the cards you've played in front of you, you can immediately end the round and do scoring at that very moment. And you're trying to create the most amount of victory points in the shortest amount of time from those cards in your hand and the cards you've played, more so than your opponents, to hopefully get the most points for that round. And then you shuffle the deck, rinse and repeat, play another hand, and you keep playing multiple rounds of this game until, in a 2-player game, until one player reaches 40 points, and that triggers the end of the game. Whoever's left with the most wins. In a 3-player game, it's 35 points. In a 4-player game, you play up to 30 points. It's just that sense of racing to points to try to end the round before your opponents can get too many points or combo too well with their hand, so you are left with more points. And the other unique thing with that too is you can also, on your turn, end the round but call out for a last chance, which allows each of your opponents to take 1 more turn, and if they still can't beat the amount of points that you had in your hand, you get a bonus of 2 points, and they're left with, I don't want to go through the full rules, but they're left with just a minuscule amount of points left over from one set of the colors they collected. They don't get to score all their points for their entire hand. So you get a bonus and they get a negative if you can beat them by giving them one last chance in that round. So it's kind of a push and pull, kind of a push your luck with set collection, and then playing pairs of cards down on the table to do some special abilities to try to ramp up the strategy that you're going after each and every round. So that is Sea Salt and Paper. And my number 1 game that was released in 2022, I have not actually gotten my copy of this game in the mail yet. I did kickstart it, or I backed it on GameFound for its second printing, but Ryan from the Talking Cardboard crew owns the game, and we've played it multiple times, and I could not see this game being in any other spot on the list than number 1, because I enjoy it that much. It's unfortunate that I think it's a GameFound or a crowdfunding campaign exclusive game, so you can't really find this in retailers. So I feel bad about putting this on the list, but I just really couldn't see it in any other spot than being my favorite game released in 2022, and that is Guards of Atlantis II. Guards of Atlantis II is just so fantastic. It is a MOBA style game that is brought to the tabletop. So a MOBA style game, MOBA, I believe it stands for Massive Online Battle Arena or something like that, but there are multiple iterations and different versions of this game type shown through different computer games, but it hasn't really been done very well in the tabletop setting until now. Guards of Atlantis 2 really does it well, where every player, again, has a unique special faction with a unique set of cards that are completely different than any other player at the table. And it is a team versus team game, which is really fun also. You can literally play this game, I think it's from 2 players up to 10 players. You can really play like a 5-on-5 game of this, would just be massive chaos and a ton of fun. We've played it with, I think, up to 8 players or at least 6 players before, and the more players, the better in this. Every card has a value on it that has an initiative value, so depending on how high of an initiative you played on your card, that will tell you whether or not you are able to activate that ability before or after your other teammates or your opponents. You're essentially just trying to score points every round or completely take over the other team and push them back to their base. And if you can do one of those 2 things by the end of, I think it's 3 to 5 rounds, then you win the game. But every card you play has a really powerful action associated with it, but the board state on the middle of the table really matters on if your card will even activate or not, because every card has a specific use for it, whether it's a specific range or a specific ability that will only trigger if you're in a very unique situation on the main board on the table. So you are trying to kind of jockey for position and trying to position yourself in a way that your card will activate and do its ability. And sometimes it happens to where you put yourself in a position where the card you play can't do anything and it's not effective at all because you did not play it with the correct range from the character or in the correct spot on the map or that sort of thing. So it's got a lot of planning and strategy with it that is very difficult, but all centralized around simply you just play a card and that's what your character is going to do. And then at the end of every round, depending on how well you did or how poorly you did for that round, you are purchasing a new upgraded version of one of the cards from your hand. So you're getting rid of the worst version of the card out of the game and you're upgrading it to a new, better version to your hand. And now for the next round, you have a better version of that card to play with. And the back and forth, the team aspect, the working together really comes through in this game. It's just a whole lot of fun to play your cards, resolve the actions, and see your plans and your strategy, the result of your strategy, how that plays out. So that is Guards of Atlantis 2. Okay, and that does it here for today's video. Like I said in the beginning of the video, if you enjoyed the content you see here on the channel, please consider subscribing. We really do appreciate it. It helps our channel out a lot. Like the video and leave comments below if you've played any of these games and maybe what were some of your favorite games that were released in 2022. Well, until next time, you all have a great day and have fun gaming.